Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has failed to answer clear questions about his ill-defined military deployment in Iraq. Yesterday, Conservatives refused once again to answer in this House, but the member for Selkirk-Interlake stated on CPAC that the mission will end on October 4th. Will the Conservative government confirm that the 30-day Canadian commitment in Iraq will indeed end on October 4th?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's a great deal of confusion with respect to the NDP position on Israel. I wonder if the Leader of the Opposition could confirm for me.
Well, I can understand the confusion. We are in the Middle East and we are under the eyes, but we're talking about Iraq. It took over a week for the Prime Minister to answer a simple question about the number of troops involved in the Iraqi deployment. It now appears that Canadian soldiers may require visas approved by the Iraqi government. Since this military deployment is still ongoing, and since it's set to conclude in 12 days, precisely how many Canadian soldiers are on the ground in Iraq today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, what does the Leader of the Opposition not understand? That our friends in Israel are on the front lines combating terrorism, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, there are rules in the book about question period. You are our arbiter. We ask you to enforce the rules on relevant and on question period. When asked at Foreign Affairs Committee just a couple of weeks ago, the Minister said that a status of forces agreement with Iraq outlining operating rules for Canadian forces had not yet been completed. Has that agreement now been completed? And if so, when can Canadians see it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, clearly the Leader of the NDP does not identify or understand the fact that our friends in Israel are on the front lines combating terrorism in the region, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that does not speak very favourably about your neutrality in this House.
Before we proceed to question period, the Chair wishes to make a brief statement. The office of Speaker is an ancient one, and there are many procedural authorities in this country and abroad that describe the Speaker's role. Our own tomb, House of Commons Procedure and Practice, encapsulates my role as follows at page 307. The Speaker is the servant, neither of any part of the House nor of any majority in the House, but of the entire institution, and serves the best interests of the House as distilled over many generations in its practices. Despite the considerable authority of the office, the Speaker may exercise only those powers conferred upon him or her by the House within the limits established by the House itself. With respect to question period proceedings, contrary to what some members and others may believe, this means adhering to practices that have evolved over a broad span of time and that have consistently been upheld by successive Speakers. By way of example, on October 28, 2010, debates page 5505, Speaker Milliken said, and I quote, "As all of the honourable members know, the Speaker has no authority over the content of answers given by a Minister or Parliamentary Secretary in response to a question asked during question period," unquote. The issue came up again on December 1st, 2010, debates page 6677, and on that occasion, Speaker Milliken stated, quote, "The Minister in his response may not have answered the question, but it is not the role of the Chair to decide whether a response is an answer or not to the question. Indeed, the Chair has no authority to rule an answer out of order unless the answer contains unparliamentary remarks or a personal attack on some other member. It is not for the Chair to decide whether the content of a response is, in fact, an answer. As we have heard many times, that is why it is called question period, not answer period." In my own ruling regarding question period proceedings delivered on January 28, 2014, I stated very clearly, quote, "There's been much discussion recently about the nature of answers during question period, with calls for the Speaker to somehow intervene, citing practices in other countries. Each Parliament has its own traditions. Successive Speakers in our House have maintained our tradition of not intervening in respect of answers to questions, and I do not intend to change that. For me to deviate from this long-standing practice would require an invitation from the House," unquote. To date, the House has not seen fit to alter our practices or give direction to the Chair in that regard. Now, that being said, I have no doubt that Canadians expect members to elevate the tone and substance of question period exchanges. As your Speaker, I hope the House can rise to that challenge. I also ask all members to heed my request of last January 28th when I asked members, quote, to consider how the House can improve things so that observers can at least agree that question period presents an exchange of views and provides at least some information. The onus is on all members to raise the quality of both questions and answers, unquote.